Okay. Okay, cool. Maybe it's good to start with a little introduction before I give the floor to Frederik, who will host us through the world of music rights. So my name is Michiel. I work for De Cour, one that's an organization in Ghent in Belgium, one of the organizing partners of the Sound Roots project. So this is the second session of our music industry course. Normally I pasted a link in the chat, I think the first message where you can also see the rest of the program. So if you are interested in other sessions, you can subscribe via that link. But maybe it would be good. We are still waiting for 3 to 4 people who send me a text message that they are joining us. But maybe it would be nice to already start with a small introduction of the people who are here in the Zoom, so that we kind of know who everybody is, and maybe also tell a little bit about your background and why you are here in this session. Um, maybe.
Yeah, should I start?
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Maurice. I'm here because I do, how do you say it in English? Is it an internship at the course?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's how I know about the session. But I'm also a kind of amateur musician myself. And I have like a little recording studio at home where other bands come and record their music. So that's how I mainly like engaged with music. And I've also like released some songs for them online. So I've done a bit in that field, but that's it.
Thank you. Who's next? Irene, maybe?
Yes. Hi. Sorry, I can't show the video because I'm on a screen without webcam. Hi, I'm Irene. I'm one of the partner of Soundroots project. I'm from Italy. Our association is called ASSUD, and it's mainly focused on environmental justice and climate justice. So what we're doing in the project is basically coordinate everything about the environmental guidelines and action plans for reducing environmental issues. Um, yeah, and have fun.
Okay. I see Benoit.
Hello. Um, Hi, everybody. I am Benoit. I'm working for the Cour. And this project, I'm mainly doing production work. I help people out making it happen, technically and logistically. But I happen to also be an artist myself. So it will be interesting to listen to what will be said here.
Okay. I see also, so Louis. Aha. Louis is in the chat. So Louis is 17 years old and studying mixing and mastering. All right. Eileen, I also see. Eileen is 22 and studying and making music. Voilà. Is it okay, Frederik, for you
Yeah.
to start or?
Cool, yeah, sure. So welcome everybody. My name is Frederik Meewis. I work for SABAM. SABAM is an authorized society, or in English, like British English or American English, they call it a CMO as well. CMO stands for Collective Management Organization. What do we do exactly? Well, we manage copyrights. And today I'm here to talk about that and also about other rights and just the world of music, more in general, like the rights holders that are attached to music and to creations and also to recordings, because it is a jungle, kind of a jungle. It's a world with a lot of information. It's not always easy to find that information, or not always easy to understand what type of rights are connected to music. So that's why I'm here, just to talk about it. It's a small group today, which is cool. Feel free, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me. Maybe Michiel could have keep an eye on the chat if a question pops up, so I can focus on the PowerPoint here. So I'm going to talk a bit today, and it's like, I think the session is like 40 minutes in total, and of course with questions it can be a bit longer. Feel free to interrupt. So first of all, SABAM, like I said, we are a CMO, a authorized society, and we've been active for over 100 years. We operate in Belgium. I noticed that I think there is a Spanish person here as well. In Spain, I mean, I'm not sure if you're from Spain, but in other countries, you have the same kind of companies. In Spain, it's Sky. In England, it's PRS. In America, you've got BMI, ASCAP. It's a worldwide phenomenon or structure that there is. A authorized society focuses on copyright and music. But I will go further into detail later on about what we do exactly. We've been active for over 100 years, and back in the days, we've been created by 8 creators. Those were people that, poets, for instance, or people that wrote music, and they noticed 100 years ago that their creations were being used by other people, and that those people were gaining money with that. And they thought it was unfair that people were using their creations without asking permission or without paying any money towards the original creators. So that's actually the main reason why we started out in Belgium over 100 years ago. What do we do exactly? The creators or our members, authors, composers, when they sign up with SABAM, we will make sure that every time their creations are being used in public, that they get a financial compensation for that, like a remuneration. So that's the basic idea. We're a Belgian society. We're not a governmental organization. We're a private organization, and all the members of our company, of SABAM, are stakeholders. And I work for them. It's a company created by and for authors. And I'm administration, and I help out with questions and so on. But it's like really organized and for the authors. You've got a board which consists of authors and composers, and they decide how we work. It are the members of the society that, for instance, can use their vote, their voice. If they want to change something, they can elect new members for the board. So it's really the house of the authors and composers. Well, we do not only work on music, but also other art forms such as the audiovisual art form, screenwriters, directors. We represent them as well. So if you make movies or documentaries, you can become a member as well at our society. That is not the case for every country. Like for instance, in England, PRS, they don't focus on these other art forms, but they only focus on music. So it's quite unique that we do that at SABAM. So not only music, also audiovisual, and then literature. It can be journalists, poets, writers, theater, can even be choreography, dance spectacles, a director of a theater production. And then visual arts, those are sculptors and painters. Of course, today I'm going to talk about music and what we do for music members. In total, our members were we have a total of 48,000 members. Those figures are from 2023 because the figures for 2024 they're not released yet. It's at the end of the year that we know those figures. So all figures I'm showing are connected to 2023. We represent more than 48,000 authors and composers because we work together with other societies abroad. Like for instance, Europe, in every European country, there is another local society with whom we work. And you could say, for instance, that if music of a Spanish band is being played, or of Spanish authors and composers is being played on radio in Belgium, or a concert or whatever online streams, we will make sure that the royalties or the author rights that are being generated, that they get paid to the authors and composers, and that goes via or through the other society, for instance, a Spanish society or a British society. So in that way, you could say that we represent more than 48,000 members, but those 48,000 are the direct members, mostly Belgian members that decided to become a member at our society. You also see the distinction here between women and men. More men at this point are member than women. We also, and this the next slide, we do not only represent authors and composers. Authors stand for people within the music industry that write lyrics. Composers stand for the people that write melody, and publishers, that stands for companies that work on music. A publisher is not a record company. A record company is a company that releases albums. They finance albums and they work on that album. Publishers are companies that work on creations, and they are members of our society as well. Same for other societies abroad. A publisher can, for instance, pitch songs towards a Netflix series or commercials. What they try to do is make sure that these songs are being used and that it generates author rights or royalties. They sign, for instance, authors and composers, talented people with whom they want to work, and they make sure that those writers can, for instance, get in touch with other authors and composers. They can write songs together for well-known artists and so on. So that's the idea, or that's the job of a publisher, organizing writing camps, bringing talent together, making sure that songs are being used by artists and that it generates royalties. They, of course, get paid for that. And how do they get paid? Well, they get royalties as well from a society like SABAM. So they're also our members. Not only authors, composers, but publishers are also members at our society. What is copyright exactly? Well, it's a type of intellectual property that protects the creations of authors, of authorship. So it arises automatically whenever somebody writes a song, he or she becomes author of that work automatically. You do not need to be a member of a society like SABAM or PRS to be an author. It just happens. It is defined by the law as well. There are only 3 rules who are important. For instance, the first one is that you create something that is original. It cannot be a copy of something that already exists. That's very important. It needs to be a result of a creative activity. And it needs to be more than just an idea. So it needs to be perceivable, tangible, audible. It needs to be out there, visible, for instance. So if those 3 criteria are there, then you become an author. And then copyright arises as well. You have certain rights as an author. For instance, one of them is that you can become a member of a CMO like SABAM, and you have the right to earn money whenever your works are being used. That's defined by the law. It's the Code of Economic Law. We work within that framework as well as a society. And that means that if you're a member of a society, of a CMO, and your works are being used in public outside of the family circle, for instance, live concert streams, radio airplay, Netflix streams, television broadcasting. If there is a use of your work in public, you get author rights or copyright royalties. Another rule is, besides the fact that it needs to be used outside of the family circle, is that it needs to be the music. We can only collect royalties for music of authors that are alive, or when they are not alive anymore, if they passed away over 70 years ago, we cannot collect anymore for those work. It's the public domain in that case. So we do it for all members, but when the member passes away, we only have 70 years left. That's like a general European rule as well. I think in some other countries it's different, but most of the time it's 70. And I'm going to talk about recordings as well. You also have certain rights for recordings. The rule there is 50 years. So 50 years after the release date. If a work is in public domain, you can use it freely. You do not need to ask permission, for instance. You can just use it and it doesn't generate royalties anymore for a society. So it's quite simple. When and why should you affiliate with a society? Well, if you want to earn money when your work is being used in public. So it's only interesting for those authors or artists that create and that have music that is released. We do not protect musical works. And by that, I mean that we do not manage moral rights. We focus on economic rights. Economic rights is the money that works generate whenever it's being used in public. But moral rights is more, those are the rights connected to a person. If you write a song, copyright arises and moral rights arise as well. For instance, an example of a moral right is that if I create a song, then I'm the father of that song, and I have certain rights I can use. For instance, if somebody steals my song, plagiarism, that's called plagiarism. If somebody steals my melody and uses it, I have the right to tell you not to do so. And if you do so, then I could start a lawsuit against you, for instance. Those type of rights, the moral rights, are not the rights we focus on because we don't have those rights. They stay with the person or creator, him or herself. So that's a very important thing to know. We focus on collective management of rights. Like I said in the beginning, CMO in America and in Great Britain, they call it a collective management organization. So we focus on a wide group of authors and composers and represent them. So we are their voice. There are certain, it's easier for the authors and composers to work this way, to give it to a society instead of representing all those rights themselves. It's a lot of work. And since due to the fact that we represent a large group of authors and composers, we have a stronger voice. It's also easier for the users of music, for instance, a television broadcasting station or radio station or an organizer of a concert. They just need to address one entity or party to have a license to use music. That's easier for the users as well. Another thing, an advantage of collective management is that, for instance, if music of Coldplay is being aired in Belgium or music of an unknown band or unknown authors and composers is being broadcasted, the amount of money that Coldplay receives or the unknown artist is the same, because we treat all members likewise. If you would not have collective management, it would be more kind of it will become maybe a kind of a jungle, copyright jungle, and certain authors and composers receive more money for 1 minute on television than others. Maybe the authors that are less big wouldn't even receive royalties because they're just happy that they're being aired on a big channel. So the fact that there is like a neutral party that focuses on these type of rights and represents everybody makes it easier as well for authors and composers. How can you become a member? Well, you can do it online. Same for other societies abroad. You can just affiliate online. The cost that you pay to become a member at SABAM, and it will differ with other societies. Ours is 75 euros. It's an administration fee. And besides that, you also pay a one-time member share of 31 or 124 euros. The difference between those two prices is that if you pay a small share, you do not have a vote during the General Assembly, which takes place every year. But for the rest, it's just the same. Back in 2018, we did not charge an administration fee. So it was just a member share that you paid. That changed. I already heard from like people like that it's a lot of money. That's true. It's a one-time payment, of course, and the member share, you can get that back if you decide not to be a member anymore. If you stop creating songs or you leave the society, you just get that back, and then the cost is 75 euro. The reason why they implemented that administration fee is as a kind of a barrier for new memberships, because we noticed that too many people decided to become a member. And in a lot of cases, also people that wanted to become a member in a very early stage, even before they released songs. And that's why we implemented a price, as kind of a barrier. But I do not have the feeling that there is a big difference, that it doesn't stop people of becoming a member. But it's open for debate, that price, in that sense. By that, I mean that it's something we're looking at to lower it, or maybe just make sure, just kill it, like delete that administration fee cost. So who knows in the future that the price would just be the member share of 31 or 124 euros. Another thing is that you need to be an author of at least one creation. That's easy. And you also need to show a proof that your works are being used in public, that there is an exploitation. Why? because there's no reason to affiliate when you do not have music out there in public. It doesn't generate money if it's not out there in public, so there's no reason to become a member. But you sign a contract and you can become a member in like 24 hours. It goes quite fast. An important thing is that once you've become a member, it's not that you don't need to do anything anymore. Well, if you want to receive your royalties, it's important to document your songs, the songs that you create. For instance, if I would create a song with Michiel, I would document that song and we would decide what kind of share or shares everybody's getting. If, for instance, we say it's 50-50, we document that work, and it's super important for us, for a society, any society, to know what the shares are, because that's, we work with that copyright because we pay out money, royalties, and we need to know what share Michiel is getting and what share Frederik is getting. Besides that, it's important we have a notification of the works when they are being used. And I'm talking about set lists, playlists in this case. We use fingerprinting for radio and television in Belgium. Other societies do that as well. So it's like Shazam. We scan and recognize repertoire. But besides that, when an artist goes out and play a concert, it's important that we know which songs that artists played. We do not fingerprint clubs or venues. So how does it work then? Well, the organizer can let us know which songs have been played that evening, or the member, the persons that are a member at SABAM, they also have an online tool where they can send us, through which they can send us set lists. Just as a notification, like we've played in this venue on that date, and these were the songs that we played. So documentation and notification are key when you put them together, and we have royalties. We received royalties. We can pay them out to the rights holders. This is a small summary of how the flow goes. You become a member, you register your works are being used. It's Unisono in Belgium that invoices the royalties, and we, SABAM, distribute them to the rights holders, and the authors, composers, and publishers receive their royalties. Like I said, we work together with other sister societies. So here's a map, and as you can see, everything that is blue is under our contract, or we have sister societies over there. So it's a very wide territory that we work on. So you could, when you become a member of a society, you have the option to become a member for a specific territory or just the whole world, which makes it easier, of course, to affiliate with just one society and have that society work on just the world. That's easier than having different societies, but it's up to the author composer to choose how you want to work. Yeah. So I also wanted to talk about the neighboring rights. As I mentioned in the beginning, we, SABAM, we focus on copyright. But besides copyright, you also have something that's called neighboring rights. It's easy to distinguish those two if you just look at on the one hand the song, the creation, and the other hand the recording. So the copyright is connected to a creation, to a song, and that's what SABAM works on. We focus on the songwriters and on the publishers. We make sure that these entities get their royalties. But besides that, you also have recordings, and there are also rights attached to recordings. We call these rights neighboring rights. That's like an international term or word for all these kind of rights that are connected to the recording. On the one hand, you have performers that receive neighboring rights. Those are musicians, so people that are playing on the record, for instance, a drummer, a guitar player, singer, keyboard player, and so on. These rights holders, they get neighboring rights every time a record is being played on radio, on television, even on events, a DJ set. Whenever a record is being used, neighboring rights will appear and will be paid towards those musicians. In Belgium, you have playwright that focuses on these rights, the neighboring rights for musicians, performers. And on the other hand, you also have neighboring rights for record companies, for labels. And in Belgium, it's SABAM that represents all those labels and make sure that the neighboring rights for the record companies are being paid towards the labels. You could also compare it with, like, for instance, the audiovisual sector. There as well, you have neighboring rights and you have copyright. For instance, if I would write a movie together with Michiel and I would be the screenwriter and Michiel would be the director, then Michiel and I would receive copyright from SABAM. But if we have actors that act in our movie, these actors will receive neighboring rights. You could compare it with musicians that play what Michiel and I have written. Those actors will receive neighboring rights when the movie is being broadcasted on television, for instance, or in cinema. And then, you have a production company for a movie, and you could compare that with the record company. That production company will get neighboring rights as well because they fund the movie. Same for a record company that funds the record. So that's kind of the flow, copyright and neighboring rights. Do know that in some cases, all these rights holders are the same. For instance, if I would write a song and I would go to the studio and record it myself, and I also have a label, a record company myself, because I'm DIY, I do everything myself, then I would get neighboring rights as a musician, neighboring rights as a label, and also copyright as a songwriter. But in some cases, the rights holders differ, and you have different parties, that are joining this project, and everybody gets a piece of the pie, a piece of the copyright or neighboring rights, depending on what their role was in the whole production. So that's the difference between copyright and neighboring rights. For Belgium, it is both rights are being perceived or collected by Unisono. There's a one-stop shop in 2020. Before 2020, it was SABAM and Playwright and SABAM. All of them collected their own type of rights. But nowadays, it's Unisono with the company that is the one-stop shop and focuses or receives all these rights in name of SABAM, Playwright, and SABAM. I also had a question about samples. What are samples and can you use samples? Well, samples are like, it's a snippet of a recording that you use in your own creation, in your musical work. It's obvious, since we've talked about copyright and also about neighboring rights and all those rights holders, it's obvious that if you use a sample of a record that is not yours, that you always need to ask for permission. You need to clear those rights because there are rights holders attached to that recording and also that creation that you can hear on the recording. So make sure that if you use a sample, of course, you can use it yourself at home. You can work with recordings and have fun. But from the moment you release or you go outside with that music, it's important that you clear the samples that you've used. Because if you do not, then you might get into troubles with the rights holders that are attached to these samples or recordings. The rights holders of the song, just as I mentioned in the previous slides, are composers, authors, and publishers. The rights holders of the recording are record companies and performing artists. Of course, there are legal samples. For instance, you've got software you can use where there is like sample-based software. You have sample packages you buy. Most of the times, those sample packages are royalty-free. It's also in the terms of use that they indicate that or not. But like almost every software package is royalty-free, sorry. So in that case, you can just use it without asking permission because you bought it. Needless to say that if in the case of public domain, when the authors, composers are passed away over 70 years ago, or the recording is over 50 years old, you do not need to ask permission to use that recording or song. A speech, that's a small note, a speech can also be copyright protected. So there's an author of a speech. A speech can also be recorded. If you use a sample of a speech, you're using a creation of an author and also a recording of a person. So you will have to be careful when using speeches without asking permission. The idea is to ask permission for that as well. I don't know. I see in the chat something popping up. I don't know, Michiel, if there are questions. You're muted now, Michiel.
Oops, I'm sorry. There's one question from Samuel who asks, say, if I use a sample and modify it to such a degree that the original sample is no longer recognizable, is that okay?
I work for a CMO, and in that case, I will always say it's better to ask for permission, but it's the jurisdiction that will decide if you can or cannot use it. I noticed like a while ago there was a case with Kraftwerk, a German band, and somebody used a sample of that band and kind of destroyed it or made it unrecognizable. There was a complaint about the band and it went to court, and the not the lawyers, I don't know the word, but the court decided that it was no problem to use that sample because you couldn't hear it anymore, recognize it anymore. So it's jurisdiction in some cases that decides who is right or wrong. I'd say, as a point of view from a CMO, it's better to check than to use and have problems afterwards. But the past has proven that, yeah, samples that aren't recognizable anymore, that in that case, a certain court decided that there was no problem and no permission needed to be asked. So hope that is a answer to your question. So what about there's another. Okay, cool. What about covers and adaptation? What is a cover? What is an adaptation? Do you need to ask permissions to do covers or adaptation? Well, a cover is like just playing a song as it is without any changes. You just leave all the essential elements for the song as it is. In that case, if you play a cover live, yeah, no clearances or permission is needed. In case of an adaptation, that's when you change a melody, arrangement, lyrics, or you translate the song, for instance, a remix or a rework. In that case, when you really change the creation, you need to ask permission when you want to release that song. Why? Just because you touched or you've done something else, and the original composers and authors could be, for instance, offended by what you did. They have moral rights, and they could say, I am the father or mother of this work, and I don't want you to change these things because I don't like the result. You could ask permission to do so, and they could give you permission, and then there's no problem. In most cases, when we talk about copyright, when a work is being adapted or changed, most of the time the original rights holders will receive the royalties, the copyright of that new version of the song. But there are cases where if I, for instance, would remix a work of Michiel and Michiel likes it, and we decide that that I get a part of the copyright of that new remix I've made, that's perfectly normal. But I will have to ask Michiel's permission, of course, because it's his original work and I cannot get copyright for that work if he doesn't agree with that. It is also important for me to say that a cover, an adaptation, it's a thin line between both of them. What is a cover for one person is not a cover for the other person, and vice versa. So my advice is, if you would record a song and you would release it on a physical album or online, it's always better to ask permission, because I've seen cases where the original artists or other composers are not happy with the fact that their song is being used, and they do not like the new version, even though if we're talking about a cover, those people would say it's not a cover, and they would, for instance, say it's an adaptation, and they will they will use their moral rights to get it offline, for instance. That exists, that can happen. So it's always better if you invest money in a recording and you use work or songs of other people that you ask permission. That's always safer. Yeah, same thing. Who are the rights holders? It's just the same as the previous slides. For song and recording, there are different parties. Next slide is about artificial intelligence. This is a hard nut to crack. AI, everybody knows what AI is, but it is going quite fast. With AI in the music business, songs are being created by AI. It's important to know that in Europe, there are certain rules about AI. It's important to know that in Europe, human intervention is necessary if you want copyright protection. So if you want to earn money with a song, royalties, it needs to be created with a human intervention. So in that case, if a AI module would create a song 100% by itself, it would not be subject to copyright in Europe. You could, for instance, use AI as a tool, just like we use a computer as a tool, and we use all different kind of software programs to upgrade our work. I'm talking about, for instance, Autotune is an example, or I don't know, a computer that helps you out creating beats and gives you beats, and you can adapt them, filter them, and so on. If you use AI as a tool, there is no problem, because you will always interfere as a human and you will create the song together with that software. But if in a case that AI is an autonomous creator and there's no human intervention, then in that case, there wouldn't be any copyright attached to that work because it's not created by a human being. Of course, it's hard for us, for a society, and there are a lot of discussions about that as we speak. It's hard for us to know what songs are being created by people and what songs are being created by AI generating platforms or computer programs. So how can we make sure that songs do not enter our database, songs created by machines? It's quite impossible, I think. Future shall tell. I heard that Spotify focuses as well on songs that are being created by machines, and they want to make sure that they're not on their platform because it generates streams and it takes away money from the business people that create songs, authors, composers, and so on. So future shall tell what kind of direction that goes. I think it is also important to emphasize that AI or computers that generate songs it all starts somewhere. The source of their programs is filled with data. They work with data sets, and that data are songs that have been created by other people back in the days or as we speak. So can a machine create autonomous songs? I'm not sure, because it will also always start from a work that has been written by a human being. They feed the machines with data. And that's so in that way, you could say that, yeah, there is no machine that can ever generate songs all by itself. There's a lawsuit as we speak from the three majors in America, Sony, Warner, and Universal. They are claiming that two AI platforms are using songs of their catalog without permission. And so that also emphasizes the fact that AI works with data from authors and composers, protected data. So in that case, you could say that if AI generates a song, you should have a look at what the data is within the AI platform, because the data is connected to those people, and those people should have a part of the rights of that new creation. SABAM has decided to do an opt-out.
There's just a comment from Lewis, who said that he have seen cases in which AI has generated songs that already exist.
That already existed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it works with data that it already exists, and I'd say then that is a very bad song or a very bad creation. It will get, it's machine learning, and it will get better and better. It's hard to say. What Europe asks and what SABAM asks as well is transparency. What data sets are being used? Is everybody, or are the AI platforms open about that? The fact that majors have a lawsuit against two big platforms means that they know that data of them is being used. And that's also what I wanted to say, the SABAM opt-out. We have an opt-out for all our creations, which means that creations of all our SABAM members cannot be used by AI machines. It's something that I believe every European society goes for an opt-out. But there again, you could say, how can we check? How can we check if our creations are not being used by AI machines? We cannot check this. It's impossible. So the future is, I'm very curious on what direction this is all heading for. Because if songs of our authors and composers are being used by AI machines, then we would want to have a part of the copyright on those new songs. But how to check, how to protect our repertoire, our catalog against this, it's hard to tell. Probably the EU regulations about AI can help with constructing a society where there is awareness and there's also cautiousness for what's happening. Because before you know it, it's too late, and machines are taking over the industry, and that's something a lot of stakeholders would not like. So that's the AI part. The last part of my presentation is about SABAM for Culture. It's just a brief explanation of what we do as a society besides focusing on copyrights. We have a cultural fund. A lot of European or even international CMOs have a cultural fund. It's a fund that consists of money It's a small percentage of the royalties that are being generated throughout the year. We put that aside and we use that money, that fund, to help members and users of our catalog. So for instance, members, if you're a member at our society, you have a wide range of grants you can apply for. I will talk about those grants later in a slide. Those grants can help the authors and composers out throughout their career when touring, for instance, or making a video clip and so on. Same for users. People that use our catalog, for instance, an event or could be a festival, it can be an award show and so on. If they focus on our Belgian repertoire, we have partnerships with them and we fund them financially. So this is a small overview. I apologize the fact that it is in Dutch. I did not find English icons or figures. So it's like throughout 2023, we had a budget of 1.6 million euros, and we used that for over 100 partnerships. We almost gave away 700 grants. We financially funded 18 federations. What are federations? Well, it are parties in Belgium that focus on a specific segment or sector. For instance, classical music, you have a federation that focuses on classical music in Belgium, also one that focuses on the film composers, on jazz music or on Flemish music. Why is it important that we support them throughout the year? Because a lot of our members are affiliated to a federation, and they can help us out. Those federations can help us out understanding a market or a segment of the music industry. So it's also the actions that they provide or activities that they organize for our members are very important throughout the years. So that's why we support them financially. We also gave away 17 prizes and 82 donations for good causes. Prizes can be like awards, money awards for authors within a festival or an award show. Here you see like the distinction between music and word and image. So like music is specific, it's only the music events. Word and beeld, word and image is all the other art forms that we represent. So the budget of 1.6 million, most of that budget goes to music because we generate more money for music than the other art forms. So it's in balance. Same for the grants. There's more music or more grants that we financially support than there are in the other art forms because that segment is smaller for us. Here are some examples of the grants that we have, just to have a view. You have a grant for self-released album. So if you do not have a record company and you release an album yourself, then you could get up to 2,000 euros for promotion of that album. You use that money to promote the album. For instance, you have a person that focuses on press, and it helps you get interviews or publicity in press, newspapers, and magazines. You could use that budget for that person. There is also a grant for international tours. You could get up to 2,500 euros for an international tour. There's one for a live video that you make or just a regular music video, up to 1,500 euros you can get. Publishers can also get money for their musical projects of other authors and composers they work with. Film music, up to 8,500 euros you can get for the creation and production of film music. Writing camp is one as well. Classical compositions also, and residencies is another one. A lot of our grants are based on a 50-50 concept. So, which means that, for instance, if you create a music video and you have a cost of 2,000 euros, we will pay 50% of those costs. We will pay half of it. So it's not a check, a free to use check, but it's more the idea that we pay half of the costs with a maximum of a certain amount. I do prefer these kind of constructions because otherwise members would have the tendency to just spend the money that is not theirs. And here they're more cautious because they pay half of it. These grants also help us as a society to be a partner, to team up with our authors and composers, and to be a part of their career or story, creative story. So it's very, it has a big, it's worth a lot for me as somebody that works for a society and wants to get in touch with members or wants to help them out. So that is my presentation. I believe, yeah, my 45 minutes are up or over. I don't know if there are any other questions regarding what I've told, or maybe things I did not tell and you're curious about that.
I do have a question.
Mhm.
It's about, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's about a little, like I've organized for 2 summers now, a little music festival in my backyard.
Mhm.
But I live in the fields, so I can do it without like, yeah, asking for permission by the gemeente because
Yeah.
only like 3 neighbors will hear it and they're fine. So I was wondering if like for such a small informal kind of event it would be necessary to report like covers or songs played afterwards by a DJ. Would it be necessary to inform Sabam about it or?
Yeah. At this point, you do not pay copyright, or I guess it's kind of a private party, or
Yeah, well, it is like it has an Instagram account so people can see it,
yeah.
but it's mostly like friends. It's about 80, 100 people that come to it, but yeah, mostly friends who tell friends and by
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, I'd say that it is a public event and it's not really a private or family circle thing.
Mhm.
So in that case, you should, or yeah, the best thing to do is to get in touch with Unisono, because for me it seems like a public event. And yeah, if you organize a public event, you need to pay the copyright and neighboring rights because it's DJs, so records are being used. Neighboring rights need to get paid, and besides that, like copyright as well. I don't know if that's probably
Yeah,
not the answer you would like to hear.
but I also read online that it matters whether you like ask an entrance fee and whether it's like commercially oriented or not really.
No, the entrance fee doesn't matter. Of course, the entrance fee has an impact on the invoice you'll have to pay. If you ask an entrance fee, you will have to pay more towards Unisono because there is a revenue. If it's for free, there is a minimum that will be applied, so the invoice will be lower. But there's not such a thing as a rule that says that if you do not ask a entrance fee, that then you do not need to pay copyright. That's not the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that for the next edition.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you can also on the side of Unisono, you can make a simulation of what the price would be if you would yeah, if you would yeah, pay an invoice. They give a simulation of the prices. So it's always interesting to check that out to know what kind of cost to expect.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
I also have a question. Like, so now the project that we are doing exists in doing like an participatory trajectory with participants and who work together on new tracks that are being made. We as an organization are a bit producing the tracks, in meaning providing the funds to do recordings and stuff like that. How is that normally being registered? Is it possible to register as an organization, or do we need like divide or really write down well which participants made a contribution to specific tracks?
Yeah. If you become a member or if you're part of a distribution key, you will always become a member or be part of the distribution key as a person. So if you would, for instance, work together with other people on a track, you would have to become a member. Everybody has to register, and you get a share of the song. 100% needs to be divided, so that's how it works. Yeah, you could, for instance, also be a publisher, but I don't, and your organization becomes a publisher, but I don't really think that is the right construction in what you explained right now. So by saying that, I just want to say that, yeah, you can also become a member of our society as a firm, like a firm that works on the songs and that gets a share of the song. But here in this case, if you work together as people on a track, you could all become member and get a part of it. Producers, they can also become or affiliate, they can become a member. I didn't really talk about producers during my presentation, but a producer is somebody that works on a track and that augments or makes the quality better, or the song helps out make a good record. But it doesn't matter if a person is the producer or the author or the composer or the arranger and so on. Doesn't really matter. The main thing is that the person needs to have a creative input in the tracks. You have producers that get royalties. You also have producers that do not get royalties. They just get a flat fee, a payment for their work, and that's it. But producers can also be part of the distribution key for the work they've done, the creative work they've done. It's always up to the rights holders themselves to decide what kind of distribution key or documentation they want to register.
Okay.
Same for percentages. We're impartial and we help out if there is a discussion. We could give our opinion, but most of the times we're not implied because the rights holders, they take care of that themselves.
I like also heard from projects from other organizations that they ask like participants to do how do you say in English, to take a distance from their rights, so that the organization can decide what happens with the tracks.
You mean that the authors they step away from the work and they do not claim the work or the authorship? We as a CMO, we do not like these kind of scenarios because our contracts, the contracts that we have with authors and composers, in the contract it says as well, like that we have a mandate from the moment they sign, we have a mandate to collect their royalties. And if all the authors and composers that work with us would step away from their work, we would be out of business, of course. And our contract says as well that every work you create in the future, in the past, we have a mandate to collect royalties for those works. Of course, if somebody writes a work and he or she does not claim that work, it's hard for us to know. So it's hard to check, but it's something we always advise not to do so, because in the end, it's not always the best thing for the author or composer. Why? Because the advantage of being part of a distribution key, being part of a documentation, a work, means that every time that work is being used, it generates money and the author gets a piece of that money. And for very successful songs, it means that you will always be connected to that song and nobody can push you out of this song or distribution. And you could, I don't know, in Dutch they say de vruchten plukken van het succes. If a song suddenly becomes a super big success, you'll be always part of that success. And yeah, it's a right. It's defined by law, European law, Belgian law. You have the right to claim your rights, and they're yours. Like I said in my presentation, when you create something, copyright or authorship arises automatically, and it's defined by law. So it's important to claim those rights because they're yours and people have fought for those rights. So it's weird not to claim that authorship because it's yours. But
Okay.
it exists. It exists, and it's not something we're fond of or a fan of, because it is negative for the author.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any other questions. If not, I would wish everyone a pleasant evening. At the end, I can send my presentation towards Michiel as well. And at the end, you have my contact. You can always send me a mail if you've got other questions. And if not, I wish you a pleasant evening and end of the year.
All right. Thank you so much, Friedrich, for hosting the session.
No worries. Thank you for inviting me. And till the next time, everyone.
Thank you all. Salut.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, Irene.